Oh, let me fix. No wonder some people can't get in. Let me take that off. Okay, waiting room is off. Hey, Lisa, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Hmm. So today I want to share some thoughts on working with pain and suffering, and of course doing so from a mindfulness perspective. And I mean one I think principle or saying anyway that's worth keeping in mind today is the one that goes, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. That's a quote from Jon Kabat-Zinn. He talks a little bit about pain in his seminal work, Full Catastrophe Living. And he says that profoundly healing insights may arise if you're willing to look deeply into your pain, emotional pain, he says, but I'd add physical and mental pain here as well. And he says, and if you're willing, healing insights may arise if you're willing to look deeply into your pain as it's occurring, as well as in its aftermath. One major realization you might come to is the inevitability of change, the direct perception that whether we like it or not, impermanence is the very nature of things and relationships. Kabat-Zinn also reminds us that our usual impulse is to suppress or avoid pain. It's natural and normal to do that. And he says that this habit of immediately going for a drug to relieve a symptom reflects a widespread attitude that symptoms are inconvenient. The problem with this attitude is that what we call symptoms are often the body's way of telling us that something is out of balance. If we ignore these messages, or worse, suppress them, it may only lead to more severe symptoms and more serious problems later on. Now, of course, I don't think Jon Kabat-Zinn is suggesting, nor am I suggesting, that we don't use medication to deal with some of our pain. But he's inviting us to maybe not rush to that, at the first signs of, say, a headache or something, and so that we have an opportunity to see that unfolding and maybe learn something from that. I think that turning toward pain really has us beginning with a basic kind of acceptance. And acceptance is not passive, like just throwing in the towel. It's a recognition that things are as they are in this moment. And mindfulness helps us to meet pain, not by resignation, throwing up our hands, but by actively acknowledging what is present. And we can still work skillfully to change external circumstances, you know, work with pain in an external way, do what we need to do to support ourselves. But that work really begins with first seeing clearly and not forcing reality to be other than it is in that moment by trying to deny or resist or struggle, which often magnifies the pain. The 12-step recovery tradition names this truth by adopting the serenity prayer by Reinhold Niebuhr. You know that prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that last line I think is so important, the wisdom to know the difference. Because this wisdom is the heart of mindfulness, acceptance of what is, and then clarity about what can be changed, and also insight into when maybe it's time to let go and not force a change. So some people call that wisdom and knowing the difference, discernment. How do I know I should be acting on this or when I should be moving towards acceptance? I don't know if you know the work of Stephen Levine. He has a book out called A Year to Live. And he expresses it this way: when we attempt to escape from our pain, we feel a sense of helplessness. When we're trying to escape our pain, we feel a sense of helplessness. When we open to sensations at the very point of their origin and softening into an awareness that embraces rather than disclaims its momentary inheritance, means the pain, then we experience compassion and even gratitude. And he goes on, every time you are ill or have a headache, instead of turning on every appliance in the house to distract yourself, settle into the moment as it is and soften around the discomfort. Of course, pain, there's a lot of contraction and tensing up around it. So he says, soften around the discomfort. We have been conditioned to withdraw our awareness from the unpleasant. And then he encourages us, break that imprinting about the natural tendency to withdraw from something that we consider to be unpleasant or painful. So instead of distraction or withdrawal, Levine encourages us to soften around the discomfort, allowing awareness to explore the sensations themselves. And he poses some questions you could ask yourself in the middle of a headache. What is that pain like? Does it move or remain still, ebbing and flowing, intense and then backing off? Does it have a shape or texture, he says? Is the pain constant or shifting? And then in a true mindfulness form, he encourages us to simply watch the unfolding of sensation as a process that moves, ebbs and flows, is impermanent, even chronic pain. Such gentle investigation reveals the impermanence of pain and opens the door to compassion and healing. So, mindfulness transforms pain, not by eliminating it, the physical pain, the mental or emotional pain, but by shifting our relationship to it. So, with awareness, pain need not trigger fear or aversion immediately, like it sometimes feels like it has to do that, but maybe it doesn't. And with curiosity, we can be responsive instead of reactive. And with acceptance, we create space for presence, even in difficulty and discomfort. By recognizing the changing nature of pain, even chronic pain, we loosen the grip on suffering, anchoring in the breath in the present moment with awareness, and we discover that there's more to us than whatever is presenting as our pain. And again, not minimizing real pain in our life, be it physical, emotional, or mental pain, but just highlighting that there's another way to work with it, to walk through it. And we return to this guiding principle. Pain is inevitable. We will experience pain, but suffering is optional, and that's totally within our means. So let's practice together. This practice that offers us another way of seeing, offers us wisdom, not just as a pill might rescue us from a certain pain, but as a way to see differently. So we'll sit for a little bit and maybe I'll give some cues about us tuning in, turning toward some discomfort or pain. Let's just begin by adjusting our posture so that we're grounded in the low body and raising up, lifting up in the upper body. And coming to relative stillness. so that we're upright and relaxed, but we're not overly uptight. And if you're lying down, you can do the same thing, or if you're standing, get your feet flat on the floor. Have a sense of grounding and rooting in that you're here just for these next few moments. And the lifting up in the upper body, lengthening up through the spine, leveling the head. And if you like, gently closing the eyes or just softening your gaze down and letting your hands come to rest. Maybe palms facing down or facing up, resting on the thighs, or gathered together, one hand on top of the other in the lap. And taking a few deeper breaths so that you might, on the exhalation, allow for the tension in the body that might be present to just gently release to whatever degree. Inhaling fully and exhaling gently and extending that exhale out. That's the release part. The inhalation generally we think of as activating, and the exhalation is deactivating or releasing, accepting even. And after a few deep breaths, just letting the breath just be at its set point, whatever that is for you right now. Long and fluid or short and shallow. Clear pathways of the breath, or maybe congestion, just without fiddling too much or trying to fix anything or have something, be a certain way. Just coming to the breath as a way of accepting what is right in this moment. I'm breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. Let the breath be a kind of anchor point, a present moment object of awareness to return the mind to each time you notice the mind wandering off into the future, back into the past, caught up in a storyline, reacting to whatever that is showing up. Now just see about letting all that go and just bringing the mind back to this breath, this inhalation, this exhalation. And it's okay if you have to keep doing that repeatedly. That's the practice. Mind goes off, we bring it back. Goes off again, we bring it back again. We don't have to keep the mind with a stranglehold in the moment. The practice is to recognize when it's gone off, not preventing it from going off, but then choosing to bring it back. And in that bringing back, we're flexing that muscle of awareness, of present moment awareness. Now, if you'd like to, for just the next couple of minutes, we could experiment with bringing our attention to the area of the body that we might be experiencing some discomfort or pain in the body. So, a stiff neck from how you slept last night, or a headache, or just a general sense of discomfort. And if there's nothing very obvious, just choose a neutral area like the hands or feet. And then practicing turning toward instead of turning away. You're trying to forget about your headache. Turn towards it gently and inviting a kind of curiosity. Where is that sensation? Not even have to call it more globally pain, but just that particular sensation of throbbing, of sharpness, of dullness. Where is that located? Do the sensations have a certain shape to them? Or are there edges where you can sense pain coming and going? Or is it seem to be very steady? Is the sensation pulsing, numbing, sharp, dull? And just for the next minute or two, just practicing observation without judgment and befriending your own body by being willing to turn to it, even in its suffering, even in its pain, and allowing that softening that Levine talked about, softening into an awareness that embraces rather than rejects or disclaims your own body because of how it feels. And maybe bearing in mind that the awareness that notices the pain is not itself in pain, or doesn't have to be. The awareness that we're using to notice the actual pain, physical pain, is not itself in pain. Awareness is not in pain unless we're judging, reacting, struggling. If it becomes too overwhelming, the focus on it, then you can just let it be and return to the breath. And let the breath carry that sense of kindness and care in the body in a general way. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. As we bring this particular practice to a close, I'll read you a short poem by the poet, farmer, and naturalist Wendell Berry. This is from his book entitled Sabbaths. The poem is called The Timbered Choir. I go among trees and I sit still. All my stirring becomes quiet around me, like circles on water. My tasks lie in their places where I left them, asleep like cattle. Then what I am afraid of comes. I live for a while in its sight. What I fear in it leaves it, and the fear of it leaves me. It sings, and I hear its song. Allowing the breath to maybe deepen a little bit, and if the eyes have been closed or cast down, just raising them up, connecting with the screen.